Hi, and welcome back to our Business and AI podcast. Today, we are continuing with our third book, Supremacy, AI, ChatGPT, and the Race That Will Change the World. This book is written by Pammy Olson. And this book has been super interesting. We have explored the personal lives of Sam Altman and Demis Hassabis and how they have ended up propelling big tech into a frantic AI race. And after exploring earlier chapters on personal ambition, early gaming breakthroughs, and the euphoria surrounding generative AI, we now arrive at a critical juncture in this saga. Chapter 9, titled The Goliath Paradox, lays out what happens when corporate behemoths like Google and Microsoft push the boundaries of AI research, while Chapter 10, Size Matters, delves into the unavoidable pressures around scaling AI labs like OpenAI and DeepMind, originally meant to be the bastions of innovative freedom, but now deeply entangled with trillion-dollar empires. So, fasten your seatbelts. This one's gonna be a roller coaster. Chapter 9, titled The Goliath Paradox. Earlier on, the author Olson sets the stage by describing the sheer breadth of Google's workforce. 80,000 plus employees as of 2017, ranging from the world-class AI engineers to in-house massage, massage therapists and snacologists. This scale provides enormous resources, but also bureaucracy and risk aversion. Google's digital ad business generating close to $100 billion in 2017 and more than doubling by 2024 incentivizes the company to avoid disruptive innovations that might harm its advertising juggernaut. In a nutshell, the impetus behind generative AI's big leap, the transformer, sprang from Google's research labs. Remarkably, the invention was left to languish internally, partly because meddling with core products or changing the fundamental user experience might unsettle Google's primary revenue driver. Meanwhile, the newly formed OpenAI capitalized on Google's reticence by using the same transformer blueprint to build ChatGPT, culminating in a genuine threat to Google's search dominance. The author recounts episodes where Google appears cautious around AI, for instance, not selling certain facial recognition tools or limiting the distribution of advanced language models. Yet, those cautionary instincts regularly clashed with the company's desire to maintain market leadership. This push and pull dynamics sets up the paradox. If Google and Microsoft are so big that they can fund breakthroughs, can they also hamper radical innovation to protect existing profit engines? Chapter 9 leaves us with a paradox. Big tech scale turbocharges AI research. This includes massive data, cloud infrastructure, engineering talent, while also burying breakthroughs that don't align with short-term interests. And as competition ramps up, we see once cautious giants pivot swiftly, launching half-baked chatbots like Bard to avoid ceding ground to Microsoft or others. In chapter 10, which is titled Size Matters, um, the author ushers us into the world of ambitious AI labs like OpenAI and DeepMind, which starts with lofty missions like solving intelligence, saving humanity, but gradually realize that to scale up they need billions in compute, engineering hires, and distribution channels. That meant forging deals with Goliaths like Microsoft and Google. The author details how Sam Altman's original dream of a non-profit AI lab designed for humanity's benefit slowly gave way to a capped profit structure, leading critics to wonder if it was truly philanthropic or simply a backdoor to vast capital from Microsoft. Meanwhile, DeepMind's assimilation into Google tested Demis Hasabe's vow to avoid corporate sprawl and keep a laser focus on fundamental AI research. A symbolic anecdote: Greg Brockman's civil ceremony inside OpenAI's office with a robot hand serving as a ring bearer captures the almost whimsical blend of personal zeal and business partnership. The text exemplifies how a closely knit group of idealists essentially got bankrolled by a $1 trillion giant, bringing them the resources they needed while knotting them into corporate timelines and shareholder expectations. Size Matters highlights that scale can accelerate breakthroughs, ChatGPT's rapid growth, for instance, but also ring fences R&D, that's research and development. The labs might remain influential, but their independence is diluted as major decisions get shaped by big tech's commercial imperatives. Are these labs losing their autonomy at precisely the moment they are supposed to guide the ethical and societal impacts of AI? Now, let's take a look at what worked in these two chapters. First of all, chapter 9's dive into Google's size and structure offers a clear window into why disruptive ideas languish in large organizations. Meanwhile, chapter 10 is rich with behind the scenes moments. Ottman's pivot, Hasabi's continuing partnership travels, and that shows how mission drift occurs in real time. The author references the author's references to GitHub in the chapter, GitHub Copilot, Google Duplex, or the robot bring bearer illustrates the narrative with real life color. These aren't abstract corporate deals. They affect how developers code or how everyday users might soon interact with chatbots. Even amid heavy coverage of transformations in search engines and advanced neural networks, the chapter never loses sight of the individuals. Altman, Hasabees, Brookman, all of them trying to reconcile their grand ambitions with practical constraints. The parts where we where we look at what didn't really work, the author, while he acknowledges the global nature of big tech, these chapters focus on American giants, Google, Microsoft, and the labs that revolve around them. Um, I would think that readers would also be curious about Chinese or EU AI players and their lack of coverage in this book. Also, the governments do appear in the background. Example, Google's fear of antitrust blowback. But the full scope of how legislative bodies might clamp down on giant cooperatives is left mostly for future chapters. So I think this is a missed opportunity to explore how scale interacts with new or impending AI regulations. Also, some messages like how Google's ads business stifles radical changes have emerged before in this book. Chapter 9 emphasizes them again to show the impact of AI, to show its impact on AI, though frequent readers of tech news might not be surprised by this. So, chapter 9 and 10 practically mirror headlines about multi-billion-dollar partnerships, from Microsoft's ongoing investment in OpenAI to Google's hurried release of Bard. If you've used ChatGPT or GitHub Copilot in your workflow, you are touching the fruits of these behind the scene alliances. And if you're worried about bias, misinformation, or job displacement, these chapters underscore that the decisions of a few giant firms will shape how those issues are tackled or neglected going forward. Now, let's look at what actionable insights we can take from these two chapters. The first one would be to scrutinize pilot projects. Whether you're a developer or a policy wonk, keep an eye on how big firms roll out AI. Are they open to public feedback? Are they quietly using your data to test large scale deployment? Knowing that Google and Microsoft move fast to maintain an edge helps you anticipate potential pitfalls like abrupt privacy policy changes or hastily launched chatbots. Also, you'd want to stay vocal about transparency. The author's description revealed that these labs and corporations often operate behind cloaked announcements. Encourage open standards or demand model cards, revealing crucial details like training data, energy usage, and known biases. Transparency fosters a more level playing field, especially if you're a researcher or a journalist. And thirdly, I think the third actionable insight we can pick from these two chapters would be that if you're an entrepreneur or a small AI shop, reflect on the lessons from these chapters. Accept a Accepting a massive investment can fuel growth, but also tether your mission to a bigger corporation's interest. Understanding how scale can lock you in helps you plan more strategically, maybe with phased fundraising or by diversifying your partnerships. Now let's move on to our questions for reflection for this episode. First off, let's think about AI's carbon footprint. This chapter has emphasized intense compute power. How could big tech's rush to scale AI overshadow sustainability concerns? It's just a question for reflection. Our second question for reflection would be on future power structures. If Google or Microsoft decides the features that billions of users see, do we risk creating a new form of AI monarchy? And our third question for reflection would be if you run an upstart AI lab, at what point would you partner with a Gloyat? Is it possible to remain small and still influence AI's direction? So this wraps up our deep dive into chapters 9 and 10 of the book Some Supremacy, AI, ChatGPT, and the race that will change the world. We've seen how the Goliath paradox highlights giant giant firms' potential to enable and constrain AI progress, while size matters underscores how scale can corral one's idealistic collapse into gravitational pull of big tech. Ever heard about net effect? In this case, that would be the enormous leaps forward for AI, but also a creeping sense of mission drift and reduced transparency. So in our next episode, we'll venture into chapters 11 and 12, exploring how labs increasingly find themselves bound to big tech and confronting the myth busters. I hope you really did enjoy this episode, and if you did, I'd like to see your comments below, and I'll see you on the next episode. Thank you.